Let's get started. So welcome everyone to our Showcase Your Best Self webinar. We are super excited to have everyone here today. We have around 65 people here, so that's awesome. I know some of you guys are in California, so it's a bit crazy over there with the fires and everything, but I hope everyone is staying safe at this moment. So let's get started. So first, some organization introductions. My name is Katie Yan, and I'm the founder and CEO of InnovateX. So InnovateX is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to addressing the lack of financial education within our school systems, and especially in recent times with the US in the economic recession and the unemployment rate soaring, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic going on. We find it really important to make sure that all students are financially independent and understand how to manage their finances. So essentially, the mission of our organization is to make entrepreneurship and personal finance accessible to students of all socioeconomic backgrounds. And we do this through a variety of activities in the coming school year. So first, we have our after-school programs at elementary and middle schools. And this is done through our chapter network. So if any of you guys are a high schooler and you are interested in sharing your entrepreneurial spirit with the rest of your community, feel free to start a chapter and host these after-school programs in your local community. Second, we have our Incubator Program, which we just released yesterday. So the registration is open and going until August 31st. So if you're interested in starting your own action project or student startup or own nonprofit organization, we will provide the mentorship and funding for you to do that. So we want to ensure that anyone who wants to make a social impact on the communities has the ability to do so by providing the necessary resources and funds for that. And now passing it off to Lauren.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Perl and I'm the COO of InnovateX. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend this webinar today. We are so grateful that you guys have an interest in learning about personal branding, and we're just very excited to share this information with you today. So thank you so much for attending. A little bit more about InnovateX. So InnovateX is also launching an internship program to pair students who are interested in business with local businesses. As a high school student, it is incredibly hard for students to get real entrepreneurial experience. This being said, our organization is really striving to bridge that divide and bridge that gap. So like Katie said, we are founding the Mentorship Incubator Program, which will allow students to not only start their own business, but will give them the mentorship and funding necessary for this business to be successful. And additionally, we are pairing students with, like I said, internship opportunities, so that these students have the opportunity to get real life practical business experience before they enter college or the real world. We are also launching Project Finance, which is our nationwide advocacy effort to include personal finance in school curriculums. So we are currently in our trial phases of Project Finance. And what that means is that we are pressuring the Montgomery County, Maryland Board of Education to include financial literacy as a one semester graduation requirement, so that every student in Montgomery County Public Schools will leave with a better understanding of how to manage their own personal finances. Next, I will be passing you off to Kamal, who will explain her own lovely business, BZBuck.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming once again. I'm Como, as Lauren said, and I am a sophomore in high school. BZBuck is based in California, and I know that InnovateX is a lovely organization in the East Coast. Timing was a little iffy for this organization, but thank you to all of you who can make it. So I'll go over what BZBuck is. We're basically a program that introduces middle and high school students to entrepreneurship, marketing, and finance. Our plans for 2020 and 2021 overall are to complement DECA chapters all around the US, and we have recently started 2 chapters, 1 international, so we are very excited for that. We want to host educational community service projects for several clubs, local clubs, international clubs, etc. And we want to host events to lead the youth to a successful future. So that's just a little bit about our organization, and InnovateX and BZBuck has worked hard to provide you this event. So we hope that you enjoy and you can learn a little something.
All right, and the part we're waiting for, so our panelists. So today we are going to have Marina Kernes and Jonny Perl talk about their experiences with personal branding and share their personal advice and thoughts for how highlight your best self in front of others?
Let's go over the Zoom etiquette really fast. Please stay muted during the speaker presentations and throughout the event until we tell you to unmute and ask questions, or for our workshop at the end, also use the chat box to ask any questions because we will have a Q&A session. We'll start by introducing our first speaker, Marina Kearns. She is a senior product manager at Incubator Permanente, and she's a organizational and transformational leader. She has been in the workplace for a very long time, and she has lots of advice to share with all of you. So let's be respectful, mute your mics, and let's get started, Marina.
Hi guys, give me a second. I'm just gonna share my screen. Oh, is there an echo?
It's good.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So hold on, let me just go to slide one. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Marina Kearns. I've been in IT industry for 20 years. I'm aging myself. So I had a very interesting career. I've been at 5 organizations, starting with Ames Financial, then Raytheon. Then I was a director of program management office at Warner Brothers for 5 years. I was at Entertainment Partners, and now I am at Kaiser. So I've worked with many people at different levels of big corporate organizations, and branding is very important at work. It's how people know you, it's your reputation, it's basically defines your career path and how everybody treats you at work. So let's jump into it and talk about what is branding. So first of all, let's talk about what is branding in general. It's something that defines what a company is. We all know about Apple, for example, and Apple, their slogan is think different, and they stand for simplicity, minimalistic design. We all love and use Apple. So when we say Apple, obviously there's a lot of images that we all think about, and that's their brand and their reputation. Sorry, I just need to, try to see, how do I get rid of the right panel? Can't hide it. Okay. So this branding for companies, it basically helps the companies to stand in a crowd. And what they sell is not just the product. They sell their image, they sell the lifestyle, and eventually, inevitably, it increases the awareness, and it adds more sales, and it drives their revenue. So now let's talk about personal branding. So personal branding is very similar. It's who you are and what you stand for. And essentially, it's how you market yourself, it's what you represent, how you get recognized, how you get remembered. It's a story of what makes you special, of makes you who you are, and what makes you unique. So when we think about Elon Musk, you know, we probably think innovator, dreamer. When we talk about Jeff Bezos, we talk about customer experience, because Jeff thinks he's obsessed with customers, and Amazon is what it is because he said customer first, and that's what Amazon is built around. So obviously those companies inherited some of their leaders' qualities and branding. So how do you define your own brand? First, you need to find out or figure out who you are, who you want to be, and how you want to be perceived by others. In other words, what is your image? And it's not always easy to come up with that image, right? Because we're very multifaceted. So you can start asking yourself questions. In what areas do I excel? What motivates me? What characteristics other people compliment me on? For example, I know that I'm an innovator. My blood boils when I change things at work. And early on in my career, I realized, I just noted this difference in my behavior when I got to reinvent processes and change tools and change organizations. It just made me very passionate. So that's what helped me to define who I am and start building my brand. But sometimes it's not that easy to come up with our own brand. So in that case, you can always reach out to your friends and family and coworkers and ask them how they see you. Not only that it will help you to define your brand, but you'll also be consistent with how the world perceives you from the outside. Another challenge sometimes is it's hard for us to narrow down that niche of what we want to focus on. It just seems like we like to do so many different things. And I encourage you not to get frustrated or bogged down by that variety, but find a niche, find something that you want to start with, because eventually your brand will evolve. And it will change as your career and your life changes. It always changes, even for corporate brands. So at the end of this exercise, when you start putting together, and it doesn't have to be a long list of things that make you who you are, you will come up with a short, what we call elevator pitch. And essentially, it's a 2 to 5 minute description of who you are. Imagine if you're in an elevator with a CEO of the company and you have an opportunity to talk to him or her. Have that little pitch ready and be able to tell them what defines you and get them excited about you. So another very important aspect of branding is communication. And communication needs to be a certain way. You need to find your own voice, but it needs to be assertive over passive or aggressive. And we need to strike that balance between being forthright, but not being a bully, being empathetic, but also not be submissive. So for example, it took me some time to find my own corporate voice, where I wanted to sound confident but not cocky, warm but not weak, excited but not overbearing. I learned to use certain phrases that helped me to be diplomatic when I really wanted to get my point across. I also asked questions in a lot of meetings instead of repeating my opinion that lead people to come to a realization of a certain point. And essentially what I always strive for is building consensus rather than being right or being the smartest person in the room. So another important aspect is our body language, our posture, eye contact, the handshakes that we give out. All of that speaks to who we are. So personally, I know that I get sometimes very bubbly when I get nervous and I start speaking fast. And knowing that, I work on slowing down, and that really helps me to get my message across in a better way. And also helps me to be viewed as an executive when I talk to, well, pretty much anyone. The other thing is to really pay attention to what other people say or don't say. That really helps you to boost relationship. And it also provides you into the insight into their intention. So I use a lot of active listening where I actually, when I talk to people, I nod, or sometimes I say right, and I make eye contact. I've always been lucky enough to have this eye contact ability. And I remember when I was in school, teachers would just focus on me and start lecturing to me, which at that point I kind of got a little upset about, because all my friends got to, do other stuff and talk to each other, but the teacher was like talking to me. But now it's actually a huge advantage, because when I talk to people and I can build that connection through the eye contact, I think it helps me to build true deep connection and relationships. So when we talk about communication, it's not just verbal, it's also written communication. It's super important to write your resumes, emails, reports, even text in a certain way that helps others see you professionally. I'm not a native English speaker. I moved here when I was 17 from Russia, and I am not the best speller. So knowing that, I always double check and I proofread my writings. And if it's something important like resume or thank you note, I get other people to proofread my writing. And finally, when it comes to communication, practice makes perfect. In order to speak well, you just need to speak more. And you can start by asking a question at every meeting that you attend. Not only that it will give you a chance to practice, but you'll also be seen as a leader by other people. So let's talk about the next thing, which is trust. And believe me when I say trust is key in building your brand. And in order to build trust, you need to be authentic. People need to have an insight into who you really are. And besides that, it also, when you are who you are, it communicates that you're secure enough and you're not hiding behind a facade. So, but also you need to balance that authenticity with professionalism. For example, going back to my personal example, sometimes I am very direct in my communication, and so I need to soften my style and find a way not to be a bull in a china shop, but actually people appreciate my honesty because they know that when they come to me, they get the true story, they get the real facts. And I balance it with being diplomatic, soft, professional. I also can sometimes bring humor into work. I joke a lot with my teams because I feel like it makes a better, fun environment and balances sometimes dry corporate culture. But if I become too bubbly and bring a lot of my personal life into work environment, and if I joke too much, then I run a risk of not being taken seriously. So you always have to strike that balance. And finally, you need to own your actions. What does that mean? It means that we're all human. We all make mistakes. You're never going to be perfect. None of us are. And you need to be able to own to those mistakes and just say, this wasn't the best way and next time we'll do better. When you do that, it builds incredible trust based on your integrity. And people also can relate to you and you'll get extra brownie points for just being honest and human. So what about the appearance? Well, don't forget about the incredible power of first impression. Actually, I don't know if you knew, but our brains can make a first impression as far as our attractiveness or trustworthiness in 1/10 of a second. So that's very fast, right? And once that first impression has been made, it's very hard to reverse it. So when you're trying to impress people, dress the part. When you go to a job interview, dress nicely, dress professionally, but also be comfortable, because when you're in an interview setting, it's very important for you to feel like you're in your own clothes. And I also use this rule of thumb, which really helped me in my career, that at work, I don't dress for the job I'm doing now. I'm always dressing for the job, for my next job, or the job that I wish I was doing. And there's always that subliminal message that you send by your appearance to the world. When they see you dressed a certain part, I think it's 50% of getting that part. Let's talk about standing out online. So we all know that at this day and age, we have more social media presence than maybe off screen. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, these are all very important methods of communication. But they also bring a lot of our personal life, our pictures, our weekend trips. So we need to be careful, and we need to always make sure that certain platforms are searchable online, and our potential employers will undoubtedly research us. So according to Career Builder survey, 70% of employers do research their candidates online. I do sometimes. And so you need to make sure that your representation is very clear, very professional, and keep those fun pictures closed off and adjust your privacy settings so that only your family and friends can see that. But your personal brand is not just online. It's actually how you carry yourself at home, with friends, in your environment, in every environment where you are outside of work and school. And your personal reputation is your brand, and it's also your leadership style. And leadership comes from how you behave, how you act, how you interact with other people. Leadership is not just the management and bosses and the C executives. Strong leaders come at every level of organization. And I'm sure you know that in your friendship circles, there's always one or two leaders. And it's just part of who we are. Every society, every group has a leader. And as you try to become a leader, observe your behavior every day and in every interaction. Because the story that you tell, combined with those everyday interactions, ultimately is how the world sees you, and that is your personal brand. So let's talk about how we maximize that brand. And it actually comes from connections that you make. The more connections we have, the more value we provide to those interactions and those connections, the better our brand will be recognized. So 85% of all jobs are filled through networking, according to LinkedIn. I know that most of my jobs came from personal connections. So it's definitely, I think it's true. And you need to use every opportunity to work with others to build your brand. Go to conferences, go to meetups, volunteer for projects, and assert yourself as a leader any way you can. If you don't get a chance to connect with somebody at the event, there's always an opportunity to reach back on LinkedIn and email. And I want to really stress the power of LinkedIn. I was in a situation a year ago when I was looking for my next gig, and I actually found a lot of job postings on LinkedIn. But then when I found them a job at the particular company, I would go and see who works there out of my personal connections. And almost in every opportunity, I found that there was somebody who knew me at that company who was more than happy to take my resume to the hiring manager. I cannot underscore that more enough, because when you apply to jobs and HR gets 300 resumes, it's very hard to stand out in that stack. But when somebody brings your resume printed out to a hiring manager or HR, that's when you get that, shot. And finally, when you connect with people through networking, learn to be personable and build a rapport. Have your elevator pitch ready. Ask questions about them and try to find commonalities that will bond you and make them be able to relate to you. So for example, when I start a new job, or even as I go through my day-to-day at my work, as soon as I find a new person, I schedule a video meeting with them. I introduce myself and I try to learn about them, and I start building that relationship. And I can't tell you how far it goes. So finally, please don't undersell yourself. Many of us, especially women, we do it a lot. We doubt ourselves. We think that if we have a vision that it's not good enough, or we won't be able to pull it off. When we see a job, we think that we're not going to be able to get it, so we don't go for it. When we get the job, we feel like we didn't deserve it, it was an accident, and that's what we call the imposter syndrome. So I encourage you to work on those feelings. You need to learn to own your success and give yourself credit, and never undersell yourself. And that's the end of my presentation. And this is my LinkedIn profile. So if anybody wants to reach back and have more conversations, I'm always available. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Marina. Can we have everybody do a round of Zoom applause for Ms. Kearns here? I can tell you that I learned a lot from that presentation and I loved it. And I feel like we're so fortunate to have had Ms. Kearns as a speaker today. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it. Now we would like to transition to Jonny Perl. So Jonny Perl is my brother, and on top of being the best brother, the best mentor, he is a natural storyteller. And so everything since he was 2 has revolved around storytelling. And so this being said, when we decided that we were going to do a personal branding workshop, it was a no-brainer for who I was going to ask to speak. This being said, I'm going to let Jonny tell you about his career now. So Jonny, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Could you please introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about what you do professionally?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Lauren, thank you for that introduction. And Marina, that was really an awesome presentation and so useful for people at all stages of their career. So I want everybody that's watching to really take to heart some of that advice that Marina was giving. And take advantage of the time you have with her today because she is a very valuable resource. You asked me to talk about me. I am Lauren's brother. I grew up in Olney, Maryland. Who's from Maryland? Whoop, whoop. I know Katie's from Maryland. I grew up in Olney, Maryland, and I grew up, like Lauren said, loving theater and music and movies. And I started singing in kindergarten and kind of kept that through my my high school career. And I went to UCLA where I majored in communication studies, something that I feel I'm not demonstrating to my best of my ability right now as I'm just spitballing. And I came out to UCLA with the intention to work in animation. I've always loved animated movies. And after graduating, I got a job with Rob Minkoff, who is the director of The Lion King. And I started working with him on a new musical because we had connected over our shared passion of musical theater. Like I said, going back, I grew up in musical theater and singing and dancing too, and that led me to that job. But since then, since graduating from college, I've continued working with him and with the company on animated movies as well, which, as many of you know, there's a big overlap between that world of animation and musical theater when you look at movies like The Lion King, movies like Little Mermaid, Frozen, Tangled. They're all musicals first, right? At their core, they're stories with music. They just happen to also have this huge other element of the art and the business of animation. Does that answer your question, Lauren?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
I'm your brother. On every other phone call, she says, bruh.
Okay. So anyways, I would really appreciate if you could further elaborate on how you took these childhood interests and turned them into a profession. How you knew that these, as your passions, were applicable to a career that you were well suited for.
Sure. For me, it was kind of there's a bit of a process of elimination, right? Because I had this passion for music and theater and movies. And when you're in high school and middle school, most of the opportunities that you have to participate in those things are performing, right? So I was often on stage, I was singing, I was dancing, and I loved that, and I still do, and I play regularly. I'm a pianist, and I play at a piano bar, and I lead sing-alongs. But I remember very specifically during an intense rehearsal in high school, one of the directors looked at all of us. There were like 8 boys in the room. It was a boys' song. And he looked each of us in the eyes and he says, "Do you want to be an actor?" And every one of them so confidently said, "Yes, this is what I want to do. I want to be an actor." And I hesitated, and I was like, I said maybe, because I didn't know in high school that I wanted to commit to that path, but I knew that I had this passion for this art form and that I wanted to stay involved in it in some way, but I wasn't so committed to specifically the performance aspect, especially because I had seen a lot of people older than me go through those steps that were very talented people that, you know, have every right and totally deserve to be Broadway stars, you know, but that industry in particular is a whole nother beast, and there's a lot of luck involved, and even the most talented people don't always make it as actors, right? So I knew that I wanted to be involved, but I didn't want to risk everything on being an actor. And so I was able to take my passion for music and storytelling, theater and film, and kind of bring that over into the production end, which is where I'm working now, while still performing and teaching, but staying involved in all the parts of it that are fun for me.
Perfect. So as Marina expressed beautifully earlier, an aspect that is so important to professional success is just really making sure that you have these personal connections. And for example, she referenced earlier the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, how did you personally pitch yourself to enter the world of Hollywood per se? You said that you were the person that launched you into this career was Steve Fickinger, the former VP of Disney Theatrics. So how did you pitch yourself to him, and how did you determine your unique position in Hollywood and Broadway while pitching yourself to him?
So just to clarify, because I know you know that, but I hadn't actually talked about that yet. So take every opportunity you can to reach out to people that you are interested in and connect with them, right? Especially now in this time where so many people are working from home, anyone that you want to talk to is probably available for, 10 to 15 minutes. And like Marina said, you can find them on LinkedIn. You can reach out and say, hi, I am in high school and I'm interested in your career path. Do you have time to talk? You can even say, normally I'd ask you for a coffee. That's what I've been doing. My sister and I, we've been watching movies, and I'll see someone I'm interested in talking to in the credits, and I'll find them on LinkedIn, and I'll reach out. But rewinding, back to, I was in college, and my school had this program called Dinner for 12 Strangers, which is exactly what it sounds like. They collect 12 random people affiliated with the school to have dinner together. So that's students and grad students and professors and alumni, and you have dinner. So I went to this house not too far from my school, and one of the people at that dinner was this man that Lauren had mentioned. His name is Steve Fickinger, and he used to run Disney theatricals, which means all the Broadway, all the stage elements at Disney, which, if you haven't gathered yet, was still something that I'm very excited about. And if you had asked me, like when I was in middle school or high school, what career I would have wanted, it is Steve Fickinger's career, what he's done, adapting animated movies and putting them on Broadway. And at that dinner, I was able to make the connection that he was producing a new show. At the time, it had not been on Broadway. It's called Dear Evan Hansen. I don't know if you all have heard of this musical, but since then, it's become a very popular musical, and it started in the Washington, D.C. area, which is where I'm from, and I had happened to see his musical, which at the time was a very small thing. So when he started talking at dinner about this new musical he's working on, and I had actually seen it, and I was able to talk to him excitedly and knowledgeably about the thing that he had made and how much it meant to me and how much I want to do the kind of work that he's done, creating musicals and stories like that, that connected us. Over that dinner, we were able to connect, and we had that UCLA connection in common, also connect to people from your schools, or people from your hometowns, anything like that. And of course, shared passions and shared interests help you form those relationships. Did that answer your question, Lauren?
Yes. One more aspect. So when you were talking to him about these shared passions, traditionally a pitch consists of a few parts of saying, and one of them being, here's what I can do for you. So what was your unique selling point to Steve Fickinger, where you were able to say, hi, I'm Jonny, here are my skills, here's why you want me on your team?
Sure. So let's again rewind, because at that dinner I didn't necessarily pitch myself, right? I was still a student. I wasn't actively looking for a job. So at that dinner, honestly, I didn't even do the best job. I didn't keep his contact information after that dinner. Very serendipitously, I ran into him at a musical. We were at the Hollywood Bowl, and we were watching a chorus line, and I recognized him in the crowd, and I went up and talked to him again. And at that point, it was August after I had graduated, or maybe July after I had graduated, and the conversation led to, hey, what are you doing now? And I said, oh, well, I've just graduated and I'm looking for work. And it was then that we swapped information, and we started emailing. He wasn't exactly sure what he wanted to do with me, because I knew that I wanted to help. But again, because like so much of my training was the performance side of it, I hadn't yet fully tapped into production potential, right? So I was able to tell him what I wanted to do and what I have done. And that just, it kind of clicked with what he needed. I'm not, Lauren, come back. Say what you asked, how I pitched it.
I said, what was your unique selling position?
Well, I think it was that I was into it, right? I showed a passion, and I basically said, anything you need, let me know. And at that point, again, it was kind of a lucky thing. There was a point in the production where he really started needing some extra help. And at first it was just schedule, like literally managing a calendar. He was working with people from LA, New York, and Singapore. And it was hard to coordinate all the schedules between people working across the globe. So he said, okay, can you do that? And I did it, and it was good. So and that just led to, okay, you can do that, well, can you do this? And then you take whatever comes, and you have to have a, yes, I can do anything attitude, especially when you're starting. And especially when you're early in your career and you are figuring these things out, and you don't necessarily have such a concrete idea of this is where I belong in the professional workspace. Just kind of saying yes to things and gaining those other experiences will give you a better idea of what you like, what you don't like, who you are, what you're good at, and what you want to be, what you want to get better at.
Perfect. So if I were to summarize like the two main takeaways from that, you would just say like always be there, like always make yourself available, and also just make your passion and excitement clear about the projects that you are currently working on, right? Would you agree that those are the two major takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, if you're excited and you like, you hear people say this, if you're excited about what you're working on, it doesn't feel like work. If you're passionate about what you're working on, then it doesn't feel like work, and that's the work you should strive to do. I will say, with the caveat, you said always make yourself available. It's not that. Treat yourself healthily and value your time. You don't have to be available at all times every day, like we all are on this. You know, you can take a break, but if you see an opportunity to do something, if there's a job that needs to be done, you can be the initiator and say, I can do that. And then the more you volunteer and the more you put yourself out there, people are going to trust you with bigger things.
Perfect. Before we dive into some of our further questions, I feel like it would do the audience justice to just have a better depiction of what you are currently doing. So could you please talk about your work
Absolutely.
at Cinemation, just so that they can have a clearer understanding before we dive in?
Sure. So I am working on a very silly movie called Blazing Samurai. Lauren, maybe you want to pull up a picture of the Blazing Samurai poster. She says no.
I don't have screen sharing access.
Okay, well, you can Google it, Blazing Samurai. It's based on this movie from the 70s called Blazing Saddles, which was a comedy by Mel Brooks about a white town that is racist, and they get an African-American sheriff, and they hate him for being black, but ultimately they have to learn to overcome their racism, right? And it's very funny movie. This movie I'm working on, Blazing Samurai, takes that same concept and even some of the same people that worked on that movie in the 70s, and instead of a town of white people getting a black sheriff, we have a town of cats that gets a dog samurai, and they hate him for being a dog. And it's very silly, and it sounds so dumb every time I pitch it. But it's really fun, and specifically what I do is my title is Production Supervisor, which means making sure that every part of the story, from the beginning of it being on the page, to recording the actors' lines, to drawing the characters, to making 3D models of the characters, to making sure those 3D character models can move, and then making sure that it's lit and edited in a way that is all cohesive. There's over 200 people working on this movie, and they're all working on their individual parts of it. And my job is to bring it all together and make sure that everything is staying on schedule so that we can not spend a ton of money, like so we can stay under budget and make sure that the story and everything is cohesive and flows.
Perfect. Thank you. So now that we have an understanding of where you were when you left college versus where you are now, and where you were, frankly, even all the way back to middle school, you went back. Could you please explain how your personal brand growed and developed during this process, and how you discovered your unique skills and interests in this field? Because you said earlier when you started, you were just like, I'll kind of do anything. I used to perform, and here's what I like now. Here's what I want to do. So how did you discover your unique skill set? Because you have really made a niche for yourself with regard to everything from immersive theater to production management. And so I would really like you to explain how you discovered that niche.
Yes. Okay. And as you are gathering, like Lauren said, I'm someone that's a little all over the place in terms of what I do, right? I've for myself, in terms of personal branding, broken it down into 3 things, and they all tie together, and it comes down to one thing. If you had to, okay, if you asked me what I wanted to do in high school, as I was having this struggle of, oh, I like music and stories, but I'm not really an actor, what should I do? I would have told you later in high school, I would have said, my plan is to own Disney, right? And what I meant by that, I take a look at the Walt Disney Company, right? We were talking about branding of Apple and Nike and these major companies. Disney is one of those companies. And Disney's theme, Disney's brand is story, right? Everything they do, whether it's a theme park ride, immersive storytelling, whether it's a musical, stage production, or whether it's an animated movie, animation and, the film world, everything starts with story, even their merchandise and their video games, everything. And so if you were to, through their branding, I have branded myself as someone that is first a storyteller, right? With the creative and management skills to produce creative works. And from there, I produce work in animation, Broadway, and immersive entertainment. Does that make sense? That's how I've made sense of myself.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. So the last question I would have for you would be, how would you define clear personal branding? Like if everybody, all 60 people on this webinar, were to walk away with a clear brand, what advice would you give them in order to do that? How would you define a clear personal brand?
It's difficult, right? And Marina talked a little bit, she talked about this too. You need to know, and you don't need to know now, right? But you can kind of start figuring out now, what is it that makes me me? There is nobody else ever that has the exact same experiences and passions that you have. So what you can do now, while you're in middle school, while you're in high school, is figure out what do I have? What are my experiences that make me me? That make you you? That make her her?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jonny. That concludes our questions for you. So now we're going to turn to audience questions for both you and Marina. You two have both given such beautiful presentations. Thank you both so much for your time. I'm sure that the audience loved those just as much as we did, and I'm sure that they have wonderful questions for you guys. So this being said, does anybody have questions? If you do, feel free to unmute yourself or to put it in the chat. So a woman just put in the chat asking what musicals you are currently working on, Jonny.
Sure. So, most actively, just to caveat, a lot of the musical world is shut down right now, right? Because of the situation we're in. And people can't gather in theaters. So all of Broadway is shut down, all of the West End. Commercial theater as a whole is really shut down right now. So I'm very fortunate that I'm still able to continue working from home at this time in animation, which is, we keep saying it's pandemic proof, because all the artists, everyone that works on an animated movie can pretty much work from home, even the actors. We've been recording from their homes. The Broadway show I'm working on right now is an adaptation of a Chinese movie called Farewell, My Concubine. And that was actually, it was the project I was hired for right out of college. The project is called Farewell, My Concubine. Jason Robert Brown is writing the music. Kenneth Lin is writing the book. Moises Kaufman, who did the Laramie project, is directing. And we have a planned opening in Los Angeles, basically as soon as people are able to gather in theaters again. We'll be one of the first productions up. And then the plan from there is to get into a New York theater. But it takes a long time. I started working on that show in 2016, and here we are. So it takes time. We still haven't even had a full stage production yet. We've just had workshops and such.
Yeah, awesome. Now, another question we have for both panelists is, what are some things that you wish you knew or did differently when you were back in high school?
So I can take that.
Yeah.
So it's a great question. And as I think back, in my last 20 years, every new job that I got was something that I've never done before. And to be honest, it's not what I studied in college. I did political science and I was going to go to law school, and now I'm working in IT doing completely different things than I ever imagined that I would be doing. But what's interesting is when we start off our career, we feel like we need to be experts in whatever it is that we're applying for. So a lot of the times I would, when I was just starting off, I would look at the job description and say, that sounds so interesting, but I've never done it before. I'm not going to get that job. And then it so happened that knowing that every role, and actually even my current jobs, every year I get to do something new, it just built my confidence. And I realized that as long as you're interested and passionate, we have the ability to do whatever it is that we think we're interested in. And I think over the years, it just helped me to build that confidence. So now I know that I am not applying for the jobs that I've been doing for the last 20 years. I always go for something new, something interesting, something challenging that will help me personally grow. And I honestly think that the more unknown it is, the more interesting and exciting it will be. And I wish I knew that early. So just believe in yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Marina, we
That was
have
great.
another question for you. What was a time that you wish you knew more about personal branding and how to pitch yourself in your past? When have you felt like, oh, I would have succeeded or I would have done better in that situation if I knew this?
Well, it never hurts to know that as early as possible. So you guys are getting a very early head start. I didn't attend this webinar when I was in high school. So I think it's basically knowing, starting to think, consciously think about who you are and what makes you special and what makes you different. It's that uniqueness, the unique identifier. And the earlier that you start thinking about it, the better you'll be prepared for those elevator pitch, because you never know when you're going to be in the elevator with someone or at dinner or in line in Starbucks. And, you know, the opportunities, they come at you all the time, and we always need to be open for them. For example, my last job right now, I just transitioned into a new role. I'm now helping Kaiser to transition into a more iterative, we call it agile way of doing things. And I became a product coach, so I'm helping them with this transition. But really, the reason I got this is not because I'm good at it, but also I had a woman that I worked with. I started talking to her, I built relationship, and we were having lunch 3 weeks ago. And I started basically telling her how I'm passionate about this transformation, and she happened to work on that transformation. So it just happened that my elevator pitch was at the right time and the right place. And sure enough, she called me pretty much the next day and she said, I have a killer opportunity for you. How would you like to be a product coach for this role? So these opportunities come all the time, and there's no specific time when I wish I had that. But I think that the better you are prepared for this unknown, the more chances you're going to take advantage of.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this will be our last question for the speakers. The question is, what is something that you think must be included in a verbal or written pitch in order for it to be successful? Like if you were reading a job application, what is something that would make you choose one applicant over another? What are pieces that you think universally need to be included and need to be very strong?
I can start. I would say, you have to be recursive, right? Meaning you have to see what they're looking for, what do they need, and you need to be that person. And sometimes it's literally pulling from the job description that they'll post saying, we're looking for someone that can do this, this, and this. And you have on your resume, I can do this, 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 and this. And also I can juggle. And you'll be like, wow, this person fits our job description perfectly and can juggle. That's the person for me.
Yeah, and I want to build on that. So it is absolutely important to match the demand with the supply, because they're looking for qualities and you're bringing them to the table. So absolutely customize your resume, your pitch, to what they're looking for. But also be kind of cautious of not being just a copy-paste person, because we can, I've hired a lot of people and I looked at a lot of resumes, and sometimes you can see that it's just a copy-paste, and you're looking for that genuine touch, that the person, yes, they got what you're looking for, but they're authentic, they mean it, and they have a story to illustrate it. Stories are very important because, right now online, you can always find descriptions and you can copy and paste, amazing statements from LinkedIn, from anybody. You can probably go to president of a company and copy their description. But what you need to do is, you need to also walk the walk, and you need to be able to come up with a short illustrative story, because that's what gives people an idea that you actually mean it, you are who you are, and it wasn't just, I know how to paste.
100%.
All right, thank you. And now Kamal.
Thank you so much to both of our speakers. As Lauren said, I hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did. You both did amazing, and you have given us a lot of advice that is very beneficial for our future. I also wanted to add an interactive aspect to this event. So we do have a workshop coming up, and I'm going to hand off to Katie to explain a little bit more about what we're going to do.
Yeah, thank you. So for this workshop, we have 5 minutes. So this is a workshop where you guys will have the chance to craft your own elevator pitches and pitch this pitch to your peers and our speakers as well for feedback. So first, we'll give you guys 5 minutes of preparation after we break you guys out into breakout rooms. And then we'll send out a link to you guys, and it's a very nice resource with a rundown list of all the elements you need to include in an elevator pitch, as well as space for you guys to type up your own elevator pitches. So that will be sent to you guys. So you have 5 minutes to prepare and craft your own elevator pitch. And then after those 5 minutes, you guys will be broken off into breakout rooms where you guys will have the chance to share your pitches and get feedback from your peers. And our wonderful speakers, they will be going around the breakout rooms, hopping in and out and giving feedback for you guys. So you might see them in one of your breakout rooms, and they will be happy to share advice for you. And last but not least on our agenda is our one-on-one speed dating and networking. So I know many of you guys love coming to workshops and webinars, but a key component that's missing during some of these online events is the networking aspect, and we hope to bring this to you guys today during our workshop. So that is something to look forward to at the very end. And I'll pass this on to Lauren to talk about exactly what you guys want to include in your elevator pitch.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katie. So just something going back to clarify, you will be doing an elevator pitch for your dream job. It's a no-brainer that the thing that students are most comfortable talking about is themselves. It's not like you have to go and research. You have a plethora of information about you. And so this being said, we would love for you to just reflect and think, okay, this is what I want to do. Here's why I would be good for this, and here's why I want to do this. So for example, if you were middle school Johnny, like he was referencing, you would say, hi, I'm Johnny. I want to run Disney because I want to run Disney, and here's why I would be good for it. I love theater, blah, blah, blah. So this being said, we're going to quickly go over the basics for an elevator pitch before we kind of throw you into the deep end. We have a Google Doc resource, like Katie said, that will be awesome for allowing you guys to plan out exactly what you plan to say in your elevator pitch, and to have very concrete advice and examples for you to follow so that you can do the best that you can. So in an elevator pitch, you must explain who you are. So for me, I would say, hi, I'm Lauren Perl. I'm 17 and I'm a student at Foolisville High School. I'm from the Washington, D.C. metropolitan region. Just like who you are section just contain your name, if you're a student or not, like sort of what life stage you're in, like what you're looking for, and geographically where you are. What you do is where you say your work experience. So I'm Lauren Perl. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of InnovateX. Bullet point 3 says what you have to offer professionally. So this would be your core skills and your unique selling position. So, this would not only be your skills, but like Marina mentioned, just your passions. What makes you authentic, what makes you personable, why they want to work with you. And then your goal. So this is essentially your ask. Whether you are asking them to, in this case, it's to hire you, to say, I want to get this job, hire me. But in some cases, it might be for funding for this specific project, or to let this company start this division that you think would be very useful, or to take on this project, etc. So this being said, does anybody have any questions for the elevator pitch before you get your 5 minutes of brainstorming time? If you do, feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, feel free to open the doc that Katie put in the chat and get started. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but we're also going to be here for the next 5 minutes. So if you're jotting down your thoughts and you have any questions, just unmute yourself and one of us will be happy to answer.
And I'll start a 5-minute timer. So when it goes off, I will put you guys into breakout rooms.
Also, for clarity, because I'm getting notifications that people are requesting access for the document, you have to make a copy of the document just to ensure that everybody has their own individual copy. So if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. If you don't know how to do that, we're happy to guide you through that process. So just privately message one of the facilitators and we will help you. Give us a thumbs up so we can read the room. If you can, turn your camera on, just so we know that everybody's ready.
All right, I will be putting you guys into breakout rooms right now.
In these breakout rooms, you will have access to both the speakers and the panelists, and we will be able to give you feedback on your pitches to make sure that everyone can always improve. And so this being said, you will get real-time feedback on your pitches so that you have the ability to improve in the future.
All right, they're open. Our panelists will be hopping around the room, so they'll be giving you guys feedback as they go along.